Thank you very much, Representative Fry. Representative Schofield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming, both of you. And before I ask you a few questions, I just want to express that I personally, and I think I could speak on behalf of everyone here, want you to know that none of us condones the kinds of threats that your employees have received, and I send them my sincere regrets that they are being subjected to that kind of vigilantism. That's inappropriate. We have a process, a legal process. I don't necessarily condone these bonuses or what's happened at AIG, but I do want your employees to know that we also care about their safety and the safety of their children and their families.
Thank you very much, and I'll make sure that gets passed along.
Thank you. A couple of questions. In your testimony, you talked about the bonuses were to keep people on board, but these were not the people who created the derivatives. But when I read the materials about the ERP and why it was being created and the PowerPoints that were put together by HR, it certainly looked like it was trying to keep the architects of these products on board because they were the only ones who understood them and could defuse them, so to speak. So I'm just confused. Are the original people who made these products not the subject of the bonuses? And if they're not, and other people are able to defuse these ticking bombs, if you will, why did we need, if there are other people out there who can understand this stuff, I would think there would be a little less need for such a high retention bonus.
Yeah. As I said a little earlier, the architects of what you're talking about are not at FP today, and the majority of employees are not, had no involvement with those products.
And yet they were able to understand them because they had worked with them? Is that the idea? They weren't the architects, but they'd worked with them? I
am not going to try to get into who does what back, at a period of time when I wasn't here.
Okay. Thank you. I also had a question on a document, and I know you don't have these sitting in front of you, so I'll just read to you a sentence or portion of a sentence from the 2008 ERP document. It's the Schedule 1, which is what the employee would have signed. And it says, I'm paraphrasing, well, I'm reading sections of this sentence, the cogent sections. I acknowledge that I have received, read, and understood the AIG Financial Products Corporation 2008 ERP, and that I will be subject to the terms of the ERP plan, which provide in part that payment of guaranteed retention awards is subject to deferral, and to the extent deferred shall become an unsecured subordinated liability of AIG Financial Products. I'm just confused by that because on all other parts of that document it talks about that AIG may not delay the payments, and that seems to say kind of the opposite, and because the part that the employee is signing says that I recognize that it can be deferred.
Yeah,
and
I think
deferral is obviously something we'd be interested in, and particularly since it becomes an unsecured subordinated liability.
The not having a copy of what you're looking at right now, I think you're probably looking at two different parts of the ERP program. There is the guaranteed retention award, and if the company had been profitable in the year of 2008, there would have been a deferred portion of the ERP program. Okay. Since the company's not profitable, that deferral is just not there.
Okay.
That is part of the negative balances I've talked about.
All right, thank you. One last question. My interest in what we might be able to do in this committee going forward is to better understand whether there's any role for us, quite frankly, in making sure this kind of a situation doesn't arise again. And I'm sure you share that perspective. So I'm looking towards the future. Kind of a wide open question, but I'm interested in how do we put in place rules that might assure that when shareholders, customers, or taxpayers are getting hosed, for lack of a better word, that we don't pay out bonuses at the same time. So I'm not sure if that's something that ought to be done legislatively or through HR, but now that you have the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, if you were rewriting and revising what these contracts said, how would you have made them different, and what would you advise future HR people to make sure was in the contract that wasn't, that would give you the kind of flexibility you would think would be more appropriate, if you think flexibility is appropriate?
Yeah, that's a very good question, number one. Number two, I haven't thought my way through all of this, to be totally honest with you. But clearly, it's an issue that has to be addressed. And I would suggest that if Pat Shea has an opportunity to come up here, since he is an attorney, that he can help us maybe to address that question too.
Okay. Well, Mr. Blake, I would just ask that you do think about that in the future and maybe get back to us, because that will be helpful to us as we look forward to what can be done prospectively.
Thank you, and I'll make sure your concern to the employees is passed on, like I said.
Thank you.
Thank you,